Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to the final Blizzcon vlog that is just going to kind of wrap everything up and kind of give my final thoughts on the matter. And those final thoughts are going to be approaching both BlizzCon as a whole, but I'm also going to address some of the situations that are actually happening post-BlizzCon, since some people have asked for my opinion on it. The first things first that I want to say is, if you take the mistakes that were made with Diablo Immortal, which a lot of people really aren't doing. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest about it. A lot of people really aren't doing that. Or in my case, if you take the weird backlash that has kind of happened from the WoW Classic community, BlizzCon 2018 was okay. It was a good BlizzCon. There were good announcements to be had. I'm kind of irritated with a few of the YouTubers out there saying nothing good happened at BlizzCon this year. That's not true. World of Warcraft fans got tons of awesome announcements, as you guys saw in the last video. WoW Classic did get some good announcements, and also the good announcement that it's coming very soon. Overwatch got Ash and Bob, as well as the new animated shorts, so that is still good regardless, and I have a feeling that Ash is going to be in the regular player base's hands very soon. Hearthstone got Rostacon's Rumble, which is coming out in December, so it's literally around the corner. You guys can enjoy that, so Hearthstone fans rejoice. Heroes is already going to be getting a new hero that is brand spanking new to the Nexus in Orphea, and that's going to be awesome when she comes out. So overall, you can't say that BlizzCon was a bad deal. I'll admit that the handling of Diablo was bad, and it was bad on the dev side, it was bad on the executive side. It was, to some extent, even bad on the fan side. There were actually people who did reach out and say, and were total a-holes about it. But there also was good constructive criticism that came out of it. And despite the Diablo Immortal announcements, there still was good stuff to be announced over at BlizzCon. I mean, I completely glanced over Warcraft 3 Reforged. Warcraft 3 fans, rejoice. You finally get the remake that you've been asking for ever since, I think, StarCraft Remastered. Probably even earlier than that. So there were good announcements to be had at BlizzCon 2018. The second thing that I want to get into is specifically the shareholders meeting, I guess, that happened with Alan Adham and Wyatt Chang shortly thereafter in regards to the Diablo catastrophe. And one of the things that got announced there that a lot of people are in an uproar about is the fact that Diablo is not the only one that they're experimenting or that they're looking into doing a mobile title, and that they are experimenting with all of their major IPs going into mobile. And everybody went, it's the end of the world as we know it, and and Blizzard's officially gone the way of EA and gone the way of Ubisoft and Bethesda and all that. And I'm just gonna go ahead and be the peaceful one here and say, I don't necessarily believe that. And in fact, the announcement of that does not strike me as odd. And the only reason it doesn't is because it's good business sense. It's logical from a business perspective when you see so many of your competitors all around you experimenting with the mobile market. I mean, for crying out loud, they just barely announced Fortnite, just got brought to phones. It makes sense for Blizzard to experiment with bringing Overwatch to phones. And I'm pretty sure they've done it internally. I also am sure that it's Blizzard. If it sucks, they're not going to put it out. If they aren't enjoying it, then they're pretty sure that their fan base isn't going to enjoy it. So at that point, it'll probably be done there, and they'll take it as a failed experiment and move on. Earlier this year, Bethesda announced that they're going to do Elder Scrolls Blades, which is basically bringing the Elder Scrolls series to mobile phones. I can't help but wonder if Blizzard hasn't basically reached back on that by putting WoW on a phone. I don't think WoW will work on a phone. I don't think Diablo will work on a phone. But it's at least worth a shot internally for them to try to put it on a phone, to at least have the experiment. And then at that point, if somebody asks them, they can, they probably won't honestly answer in that regard, but they can look them in the eye and say, yeah, we did try it. It didn't really work. One of the things that I actually did expect to happen when the whole Command and Conquer Rivals debacle happened at E3, I did expect Blizzard to kind of respond to that with StarCraft on mobile, and not in the way that Rivals did, where it's just like this really small map and it's hoarded over with microtransactions. I expected them to actually try and do an RTS on an iPad or on an iPhone. It makes sense for you to be able to do this kind of research and then at that point determine whether or not this IP works. I'm pretty sure that was done with Hearthstone. I'm pretty sure that the Legion and the Battle for Azeroth companion apps were tested before they were put out onto the market. Blizzard is very meticulous in this regard. So at that point, I believe that this is a logical step. I believe that Alan Adham is correct in it. But I'm not as concerned as the rest of the player base saying, Blizzard's gone mobile. I don't think that's the case. I think they're still going to cater to PC. In fact, he kind of inadvertently hinted what should have happened at the next Q&A, which is that Diablo 4 is in fact in development. And so at that point, if it wasn't, then now it is. So they've given the fans what they wanted, basically. All it took was for them to scream about it. But we do know that there are multiple Diablo projects because it keeps getting said. At least one of those has to be on PC and or console. So at that point, yeah, we're getting taken care of. And for them to experiment on mobile makes sense. It makes sense from a business perspective. Does it mean that we're going to get them? Probably not. And then the other thing that I also want to approach in regards to that is immediately people, I think, are jumping the gun that Blizzard is going to jump into the predatory practices of the mobile market. I've kind of said that that's one of my concerns with Diablo Immortal, but it's not necessarily from the Blizzard end. It's from NetEase. We know that NetEase is working on Diablo Immortal. We know that they have a reputation. They're basically their way into the Chinese market. The Chinese market has these predatory practices. So I'm not necessarily concerned from Blizzard's end. I'm more concerned from NetEase. If we actually have mobile game entries into Blizzard and they start doing that, I'll admit I'm wrong. And at that point, I will actually lose a lot of respect for Blizzard at that point. I think that they have been basically the last bastion of sanity when it comes to AAA developers. They have been able to avoid the bad and shoddy reputation that their partner company Activision has, as well as the reputation of Ubisoft, Bethesda, and EA. They've been able to still maintain a solid audience, one that actually pays to go out to Blizzcon every year and pays exorbitant amounts of money, even just for one game, which I'm just going to be honest with you, I don't understand. Like, I'm a fan of all of them, and I still struggle on whether or not to go to BlizzCon. So the fact that you can do it for one game, I guess that shows you have more dedication than me. I don't think it's that, but that's just my opinion. So at that point, Blizzard has that reputation, and I really do believe that their developers also want to maintain that reputation. And so at that point, do I think that we're instantly going to get predatory practices from Blizzard? Given the track record that we have, no, I don't think we will. I can be proven wrong, and at that point, I will call them out just as much as you guys are. But until then, I'm going to wait and see what they actually do, not only with Immortal, but also all of these future mobile projects, before I instantly put them in a hole and expect them to dig their own grave like EA does, or like EA did recently. So at that point, I'm going to hold off on that, but it does make sense for them to do the mobile experimenting and see whether or not it works, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they've abandoned PC. I think that they've still got things going on PC. They just also want to experiment with mobile, and it makes business sense to do that. But anyway, I don't want to preach or anything like that. I'm just giving my insight into all of the developments that have been happening. Overall, I'm happy I saw BlizzCon this year. I hope you guys are too. I know a lot of YouTubers are very happy that they went. I'm glad that you were very happy that you went and you got the announcements that you wanted. And yeah, when we come back next time for more vlogs, it's going to be back to normal. It's going to be probably a schedule update, but aside from that, we won't be doing any more BlizzCon, at least for the rest of the year. So in the meantime, take care.